I'll see you in the next session. Bye-bye.
Welcome once again. This is day 3 of the Global Church Summit conversation. This is our Creator Culture session, and it's been exciting, hasn't it been? We had Pastor Tomi Adisa, we had Pastor Dami Oluwatoyinbo, and today is day 3. You know, on the third day, we usually have future conversations. So today, you're going to listen to Jason Cassing, you're going to listen to Pastor Bidemi McMordy, and they're just going to help us to see what we can step into as to what God is calling us to do in this era of innovation. You understand the creator culture process, right? We're talking about being a creator, standing in the image of God, coming into the fullness of what God has called us to be, and coming into the fullness of not just creating, but also transitioning and innovating. And so today I'm here with Pastor Laju. Pastor Laju is here with us. Pastor Laju, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I'm particularly excited. Well done on everything that you do. If you don't know Pastor Laju, just quickly go to Google now and just search for Loving Amanda.
Even me, I'm anxious to go to Google.
Just search for Loving Amanda movie and get to see it. Pastor Laju is doing amazing things. There are very few people who step into pioneering things. And in this era where God is calling us as creators, I've explained all of that. If you missed the previous sessions, please go back and watch it. You know, where God is calling us into being creators and doing things that are unfamiliar, unusual, pioneering things, doing new things, or doing old things in new ways, or doing things that is particularly maybe for, in quotes, secular people. Where God is calling us into this time, I'm excited to have a conversation with Pastor Laju because she has done amazing things. She helps authors. I mean, if you've checked her website, you've already seen her profile, but she helps authors. She helps you to put those books together. And then she has directed movies. Now, Pastor Laju, this conversation today is, I usually call it the future forward conversation. Every conversation we're having on day 3 helps you to see further and farther. How did you come into that space where I know that, okay, I mean, it's one thing to author a book. It's another thing to be able to write a story. It's another thing to be able to come into filmmaking. What happened in that? I don't even think it's a transition. I just think it's a journey because you are doing this. And please remember that all of our speakers on the Creator Culture sessions are pastors. So again, no excuse, right? So how did you come into this space? What are the things that helped you? What are the things that God instructed you to do? And how did you become to manifest in this?
Wow, that's like 20 questions.
No, it's just one.
It's one question that's pregnant with 20 babies. First of all, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing here at the Global Church. Corporate Church. I have to say it again. Once again, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing here at the Corporate Church.
Thank you.
This is Summit now?
Yeah, this Global Church Summit.
Once
by
again,
Corporate
thank
Church.
you for having me here. I really appreciate what you guys are doing at the Corporate Church, at the Global Church Summit.
Yes.
Okay, I think I got it now. So this question you've asked me, it's a long journey, but I've always loved storytelling. It was first a hobby. I used to like to write as a child. I wrote my first poem at 10, and my dad loved writing, so he kind of really
Your dad is
encouraged
a
me.
doctor, by the way.
He is, but now he works full time with me, actually.
Yeah. I saw that story.
Now he works as an editor because he's retired, but he's always really loved stories. And so I started with poetry, but then eventually it became some sort of a call because when I was in secondary school, I would write poems for meetings,
Right.
And people would read them out loud, and I would write short stories, things like that. And because by God's grace, I got to know Jesus early, most of my writing was targeted at getting people to know him,
Okay.
or at his plan, or things that just basically had to do with God's idea of the way things should be done,
Yeah.
right from secondary school. And then I think I was in the university when I discovered Tyler Perry.
Right.
And so my desire at the time was, once I graduate, I'm going to go to the US and work for Tyler Perry, because then he's
Oh my God.
yeah, then he's just Christian films.
Yes.
But towards graduation, it became very clear to me that my parents were not in a position to send me to the US.
Right.
They had paid school fees for private
Yeah,
school. They
yeah,
had really done
yeah.
their best. And then I also didn't really sense move to even leave the country anyway, because then ministry had just he had not just started, because I've been in ministry with my husband since my 200 level, so we were youth ministry at the time, and then church was going to start I think the year after we graduated, so it was clear to me that traveling was not really something that
wasn't an option.
Yeah, so it was first a hobby, writing was first a hobby, then a call, and then of course I studied mass communication, so it was a training.
Hey, mass communicators.
So it was also a training, and then I used to write, but I think that it took me a bit before I wrote my first book. And then you know how you write a first book and you don't market it well. You don't.
No, I don't even think that people know that you write a book is not you will sell the
that's
book.
The beginning of.
Yeah.
I think that what I try to tell my clients as a book writing coach is that you are the CEO of your book. In other words, if it's going to sell, you have to sell it. You have to have a marketing plan. It's not just enough to try and write. It's difficult enough to write, but you can't stop there. You can't just say, okay, I've written it.
I want to rest. Yes.
That's when your work is actually just beginning as an author. And then because I also worked as a journalist, writing became a training for me in addition to being ministry. So it was a hobby, then a call, then a career, and then of course training, career because of school and my master's, and then where I worked as a journalist. And what journalism did for me was I wasn't telling the kind of stories that I wanted to tell.
Yes.
But it offered me the opportunity to get stuff finished. Because before the 5 years I worked as a newspaper journalist, I didn't used to finish anything serious.
Write and stop.
Yeah. But then you're working at a newspaper house and they tell you
have deadlines. Yes, you have
today.
deadlines.
Like, I don't care whether you have writer's block. And so
writer's block.
So when your editor tells you this has to go to this, so by the time I resigned to really start writing full time, I thought I was actually going to be a blogger. But eventually, by the time I resigned and started writing full time, I carried that culture. So many times, just like David with the lion and the bear experience, God is actually preparing you for Goliath. And so many of the experiences in our lives lead us many times in the direction of God's assignment for our lives and prepare us even when we don't know. And so it was from blogging. I wrote my first serious book. I'd written one book before, but and then from that I wrote another book, and then eventually in the space of I think about 3 years I'd done altogether. In the space of 2 years I'd done 5 books. Right, and then people began to ask me questions about, how do I want to write a book? And I was like, okay, so this part is going to be a business. Right. So this part is ministry. Right. Pastoring is ministry.
We need to compartmentalize now.
Especially as a pastor, I think that is so important if you're going to be effective. To know, of course, your entire life, the purpose of your life is to know Christ and to make him known. But you also have to learn to compartmentalize many times if you run a business. If not, you run the business into the ground, you're frustrated, you don't know where to draw the line, it's not always very easy. So, but if you know how to make that balance, then you can say, okay, I'm going to make my business successful. And then what I'm going to do is, when I make my business successful, I'm going to do CSR for the business. Yeah. So let me have that structure in place. And then it was as I began to evolve as an author, there was a book I wrote, Loving Amanda. Yeah. And if you want to watch Loving Amanda, please watch it on Prime Video. Yeah. Yeah, it's currently. So there was a book I wrote, Loving Amanda. And there was just something that was like, it would be nice if this...
You just know the book is not finished.
Yeah, like, it would be nice if this turns into a movie. And I didn't know anything about movie making. I had given up on my dream on following Tyler Perry abroad. Yeah. But it was just really God taking me from one step to the other, to the other, to the other. And so I'm like, I don't really have the resources or the know-how to make this film. And I started trying to speak to people who could help me make the film. And
I like how you're sharing this because you're saying many things.
Yes.
There are many cultures you're actually putting down. And I love it. Thank you.
So there was really nobody who was willing to, because the truth is that filmmaking, the major thing in filmmaking is money.
It's money.
Like when you meet a filmmaker and you're saying, I have this idea.
You've not
the person
started.
is like me, I have many ideas, the resources and the experience. So it's not just enough to have a story. You also have to be willing to go to bat for that story. Right? And then I realized that, okay, if I'm going to make this film, it's as if I'm going to have to make it myself. But I can't start with this big film as my first film. Right. From where I stood. So I went to film school. Didn't really enjoy film school, but they were one of the 2 things I learned in that particular film school. And then after that, I made my first short film. And the person who directs many of my movies now is Michael Amasami Sakurokunde, because now I focus on writing and producing as an executive producer and writer. But the way he had started his career was he had gone into one short film competition. And he had won, and then eventually he was launched into the industry. So I entered into the competition, but that was 2020 COVID. So that was the first time that they did not call any winners. And you know
Wow.
how so you know how sometimes you have a plan like, okay, God, I'm going to do it this way.
Exactly.
Once I do it this way, then this will happen, then this will, and then God is like,
I'm watching you.
and so
Wow.
eventually I submitted, but I was like, I can't wait for these people. I don't think they're going to call the winners because there was COVID and a lot was going on. And then eventually I made my first short film, Love is a Star. And then I think that it's important for creatives or for anybody who God has called to do anything to start from where you are with what you have and
Nice.
to keep going better and better. And the budget for my first film, Love is a Star, that's on my YouTube channel, I think the budget for that film is, my manager is here. Okay, she's outside. I think it's around what we used to buy hard drives for Loving
Wow.
Amanda. It was like 400K,
Wow.
which is what I don't even think the hard drives for Loving Amanda is probably more expensive than
Wow.
that. But just basically starting from there, do you understand? And then making the mistakes one needs to make, and then
Yeah,
growing
to learn.
and growing. And I think it's so important. I don't think that storytelling belongs to the world and preaching belongs to God. I think that Jesus himself was such a
Love it.
magnificent storyteller.
Yes.
And if he was alive in our day, probably he would really definitely be interested in movies because that's like the modern way that stories are being told. And Jesus would always tell parable after parable after parable because it will help people understand. I don't remember the exact question you asked me. But I
No,
feel
no,
I've
no, don't worry. It's
answered
fine. Yes, it's fine. It's fine. And you know, I want to talk about the storytelling thing that you just drilled into. We think that storytelling is for public speakers. We think that, because I'm going to preach, I have to learn the art of storytelling. But I want to know, for those of us who are listening, who are using the digital space for ministry, how does storytelling impact on my work? Whether I'm a preacher, or God has called me to design, or God has called me to create content, or God has called me to help my children, whatever it is, how does storytelling impact on my work? It should even be on my calling. How does storytelling
This question
impact
is
on
not
it?
among the list of questions. You
No,
said.
don't worry yourself.
But I think that it really is a beautiful question because many times people, when you want to relate to people, it's always best to start from the known to the unknown. There are some things I might say that even if you and I don't have anything in common, per se, if I start talking about my kids, your ears perk up because
Yeah.
you have kids too.
Yeah.
If I start talking about my childhood, you're more comfortable with me because you have similar memories from your childhood. The reason why maybe a comedian cracks a joke about Nigerian mothers and everybody laughs is because nearly everybody
can relate. Yeah.
And so many times, just like in business, when it comes to communication, whether of things of the spirits, many times it's important that you get people to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
And storytelling kind of brings the walls down, helps you communicate better,
And connect.
and helps them open up. There are things that maybe I want to explain as a pastor, for example, that people might not really get immediately. I know the Greek words, I know the Hebrew words,
Love
I
it.
know how many places
You
mention.
know how deep it is.
Yeah, how deep it is, but if I really want someone to get it, I think that many times it's important to start from the things that they know and can relate to, and then move them from there to the unknown. And I use that whether in writing or in preaching or in filmmaking. I think that is incredibly important,
Yeah.
especially because Jesus himself did use it. He used it quite often.
You know, I heard that the GU, Pastor E. Adeboye shared one time concerning evangelism. He says, when you go out for evangelism, don't just go there and say, give your life to Jesus. You have to start from their need. You have to start from what they understand. You have to start from what they can relate with. And I think that even in the digital space, you can't just come and share, this is what God told me. And you don't dump revelation on people. You don't dump, say for example, Loving Amanda. If the entire book started from an idea, from a concept. If you had come and just, there's something called Loving Amanda, and then you just dump it on me, I may not get it. Even after writing the book, some people will still not get it. But pictorial evidence, pictorial representation helps me to, put into perspective, okay, this thing, actually, I go through it. And when we teach ministers on using digital for ministry, we always say that there is a language for every audience you're trying to reach. If you're not able to connect with them with a language, it might be difficult for them to accept what you have been sent to do. Which takes me to my next question. Okay. When we walk in the unfamiliar path, which there's a struggle to be understood, and I'm not talking even about being known now. Being known is not even the deal. There's a struggle. It feels like there's a battle for people to understand what you're doing. I remember sharing with one of our past speakers that sometimes it's not easy when the people you are sent to don't know that they need what you are doing. And I think that that's a major struggle in digital space. So as a minister, as a filmmaker, as an executive director, what has been the, should I say, the acceptance rate of what you have been doing, and what were the measures that you put in place? Just maybe this might help someone. The reason I'm saying this is we have a full course on launching your ministry online. And within that course, the last module is about marketing. And when you start talking about ministry and marketing, people raise their brows. But I know that that is one of the ways. Marketing is just sharing the message. That's what it is. So yes, there's money involved. But as long as you are talking about it, you're already marketing Jesus, right? So what is it? What is it? Did people quickly accept it? When they accepted it, what was it like for you? What were the things that you thought? You know, when you're coming into that space, you think, oh, I'm already a pastor. People would embrace it. But I see you doing your marketing, and I'm like, Pastor Laju already has the crowd. Why does she have to wake up every morning and still put loving Amanda?
Do we
Loving Amanda.
have the crowd?
No.
Like,
If you compare
like we
to,
do, but are we comparing ourselves to other people in the church?
Hold
or
on.
the people we are fighting with outside?
That's because you know.
Uh-huh.
That's because you. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is I already have my members, and I think that that's very limiting.
Yeah.
I already have my members, so I'm creating for my members. That's where I'm going to. Okay. We don't create for members. We create for a global space, right? So in creating for a global space, I've already dealt with one question I've asked you now. For a global space, what are the measures I have to put in place? I mean, reaching out to people that I don't even know. What do I do?
Let me start answering one of your 6 questions.
Don't mind me.
but I am enjoying the conversation. I think that, first of all, it's important to always remember first that the work we do is spiritual. Sometimes there are some extremes where people don't see the need to put in the work because God sends them. So if God sends me, people will come to meet me in
You're the second person saying this, so yes,
in the wilderness where I am. There are also some people who care so much about marketing and don't really take a moment to say, God, what are you saying?
Yes.
What would you have me do? And I think that it's important that everybody who's called into ministry, whether pulpit or otherwise, must spend time on the inside first before going out.
Yeah.
Must spend time on the inside before going out. I think that is so important. Pastor Dami was leading a devotion on our devotion platform this morning. That's what I was talking to him about just as he left.
Yeah.
And he said that your dominion in the day is dependent on your communion in the morning. And I loved it so much because many times we need to go back to, it's not just, oh, how did PL do it or how did this person do it? It's, God, what are you asking me to do? And to really get that conviction in the place of prayer. When we first started church ministry, for example, the people were advising me that I should tell my husband, he's so young, you should go and do IT, that ministry first. You should get a land first. Why is he renting hall? How much? You should get a land first. You should do it this particular way. But I think that many times you must start from, God, what exactly do you want me to do? Whether it's a path that is often taken or a road that is less taken. And I think that is a good place to start from there. So that when you go outside, you know the things that you should emulate and the things that you should ignore.
Yeah.
And I think that many times, if when we're so limited by what the next church is doing alone, then we don't really realize that we have been called to light up the world, not just the church, right? And that's why when you said I have a crowd, I was laughing. Because yes, by God's grace, we've been able to grow a fair audience. But compared to the weapons of our welfare that are not carnal, when we talk about the things that are taking a hold of people's minds, when we talk about the growth of the media on the outside, it's literally nothing compared. Somebody can post a video today of naked girls and get 2 million views in one day, right? And me, I'm happy. Oh, my channel has 30K subscribers. But where we are going to is much further, and we are competing for the hearts and minds of people. Which leads me to the other question you asked about the importance of marketing and excellence. The fact that we're doing it for God means that we should do it better. My pastor always say, nobody who is doing it for money.
But your pastor is Pastor Emmanuel.
Yes, of course.
I needed to say that out there so that nobody thinks you have another pastor.
That nobody who is doing it for money should do it better than us who are doing it for souls.
Yeah.
And so it's not enough to say,
Pastor Laju, say that again, please.
Nobody who is doing it for money should do it better than us who are doing it for souls. Yeah. Because the value of a soul is so important. The Bible says that if you gain the whole world and lose your soul, it's still a loss. And so we must learn to understand that. See, the people were battling for their souls, battling for their attention. We are in the game of mind share.
Yes.
even me as a pastor, I don't only watch Christian content. I watch Law and Order. I watch, I'm like, who killed who? I'm trying to investigate.
So,
I'm trying to figure out, because
Research.
even for me who has a renewed mind, and it's interesting that you say research, because every time I mention me on social media in my church, I always tell them it's research. But even for me with a renewed mind, things of excellence get my attention.
Yes.
Of course, I have to make sure that God gets most of my attention. So the truth is that the work we've been called to do is too precious for people to be distracted by a lack of excellence. For people to say, just watch it like that. It's a Christian
or it's
film.
my pastor.
Or it's
I
just
have to.
like, so we must learn to understand. And I think that creators, many times, Christian creators actually are getting to the point where they are needing to realize that there needs to be excellence in the work they do. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful first step. But that's not all.
It's not enough, yeah.
Because when your content is ready, that's just the beginning, whether it's a book or a film. And I think because I came from the angle of being a self-published author to becoming an independent filmmaker, I understood that it's my job to sell my product.
Yeah.
And I must see it as a project, as a product. If you put your book in a bookstore, it's not the bookseller's job to sell it, because the bookseller has 300, 400, 500 other books.
Yeah.
They can't be carrying your own on
their
their head
head.
every day. Well, you have a head, so you carry it on your head. And I think that is something that I've learned to do for my stories. Like, don't tell stories about your story. Okay, you've made the film. It's a nice film, then you dump it somewhere. You must tell stories.
The angels will sell it for
the
you.
The angels don't sell. Angels don't have a degree in marketing. They don't use social media.
Pastor Laju.
So we must learn to tell stories about our story. Even if it's a Lord's story, you must learn to herald it. Bible says that they cannot hear without a preacher. So that intentionality when it comes to quality in creating the content and quality when it comes to pushing the content. If somebody is spending big brands, Coca-Cola and
They're
the
still
rest,
spending
they're
money
still
on
spending.
marketing,
How much
yes.
more where you say, how much more you that says your message is the gospel, right? So of course I think that there are some times where there is a place of, like, there are some books my husband reads, they don't take time to tell you stories about anything. They just go straight to First Corinthians. They do. Those are the kind of books he likes to read, and sometimes there's a market for just accept me as I am. Straight. But the truth is that if we're going to really reach the world, we must learn to understand how to reach them and go out to reach them without losing our values. And I think that stories help us do that. Stories, like I will always say, change our minds by targeting our hearts and then being more intentional about storytelling, about marketing. I think that it's really important.
Wow, I love that. I remember, I think it was either 2020 or 2021, we're trying to sell something and God said to me, nobody will invest in what you're not willing to invest in. So if you say, oh, I received an idea, I received the project, I received the concept, I received the book, and I write it, I finish, I don't sell, we've not done the work.
Don't tell me what you've received without telling me what you've put into it. You need to, like, if you believe in it so much, okay, what part of your savings or your money
is going into it to tell me that you are invested in it?
And I think that Christian storytellers need to understand that the truth is that what God has called you to do, there isn't enough money in your pockets to really get it done for life. But at least there should be a level of commitment when you are starting. Like, one way that by God's grace I've been able to make films so far has been to tell brands, okay, I'm going to please sponsor me. I will show your brand in my film, right? But for every brand you meet, they want to know what you've done before.
Yes.
Track record. So if you are waiting for the first person to say yes to you,
you wait.
And then many times there are also collaborations across board that, like, that my 400k, at the time I made that 400k film, I didn't even have the 400k. But I had a friend who had it. And I had somebody in church who knew how to use the camera. Do you understand? I had another friend who could act and another friend who could. So I think that many times it's also important to collaborate across board.
I was actually going to ask you the role of relationships in stepping into unfamiliar terrains. I know that, I mean, I see when you're posting and you're listing all the directors and you're tagging them, and I'm like, this person is not in PL's church, this person is not in PL's church, you know, and
people in my church are menu.
You know, and we're here and we're saying, no, God has called me to do something. I don't have anybody to help me. What is the role of relationship? And not just using people. I mean relationship, whether it's for a season, because now we're hiding under some relationships are for a reason and we don't know how to nurture, you know, people. What is the role of relationship in stepping into this space?
Beautiful question yet again. There's an interesting parable in scriptures. It's about the parable of the unprofitable servant.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Jesus would tell that parable because the guy was a tricky guy. Was a very tricky guy. He owed his boss, and his boss was like, I'm going to fire you. He said, okay,
And
before
then
you
he
fire me,
goes-
he goes to meet people and say, how much are you owing my boss? 50K. Just right.
Bring-
30K.
bring- exactly.
Bring 30K. Bring. And Jesus is telling that parable and he's teaching us that
We should be shrewd.
people in the world are quite shrewd.
Yeah.
Why is he only like Christians? There are things to learn from these people. Of course, don't be unprofitable. Don't cheat people. But there's a beauty in investing in relationships. When Bible says that a man's gift to make room for him, it doesn't necessarily mean talent. It means that maybe when I was coming today, I brought you a gift, or I
Right.
did something for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking you for anything.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, when I'm in trouble,
And
it's
you
a
just call me,
no-brainer. Do you
exactly.
understand? And it's not really about using people. There are some people that you may never have the opportunity to collect from them, but just having a
Right.
mindset that you should be a blessing to as
Right.
many people as you see around you. I think that's a good place to start. Understanding that first of all, God is a rewarder, and so even if the relationship itself will not pay you, it will come back in
Somehow.
another way.
Yeah, somehow.
So I think that that's a mindset we must all have. I think that many times when people talk about relationships, they're thinking, people will tell you, oh, if you don't have 10 friends that can give you 1 million, you need to change your circle.
Hello.
Me, I'm like, they will change you first. You that you want to change. They will change you first. So
dear.
really investing in people. When your friend is starting a business, I think it's important that you show up and that you try to support people as much as you can. Of course, there are going to be times that you need to say no because you can't say yes to everything.
Everything, yes.
If not, you will have to say no to things that are important. But I think that there needs to be a balance, first of all, and understand that you should support people and be there for your friends. That's a good place to start. Another thing I would say is that many people are very interested in networking upwards. Like,
Right.
they meet you like, oh, I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're sending you a DM. They've never shown up for any of your conferences, paid any of your courses, paid any of your courses, shown up at church, shown up for at a meeting, volunteered for anything. I need you to mentor me. Do you understand? And the truth is that if you are sending somebody a message to mentor you, you're probably one of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So what's going to stand you out? I think it's always important that you bring something to the table.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to start. And then networking sideways. Like you want to be a photographer or you want to be a model and you're DMing TYBLO every day. Ma, please, I'm a good model. Feature me. No, you have a friend that is an upcoming photographer.
And you're not.
And you've not even said, let me just model for you for free.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we start from where we are and that we keep moving up. And then we also learn to grow with people.
Wow.
We also learn to grow with people. There are people who I work with that are not my church members. But there are people who are my church members or who have been with me from the very beginning that if I'm making a bigger thing, I'm going to drag them along with me. I'm going to say, okay, I want you to be in the same room with this other person because of how you've been there for me, or because of I understand the call upon your life. I understand how good you are. I understand your loyalty. Do you understand? So it's really just sorry, I'm tired. Relating above, so to speak, and then of course relating even below, and then of course relating sideways. There are people around you that can help you do what you need to do.
Amazing. Let me quickly ask you, what do you look for in people who work with you? Do you look for skills? Do you look for spiritual? What is it that you look for? I look for discernment.
Okay. What do I look for? Me, I look for peace. Like, if I'm making
Cannot
a
be
film,
stressed.
if I'm making a film, I always tell them that the only drama I want
Is the one you are shooting.
acting. I don't. So because really, especially because when I make films, I make it for the Lord, and I feel like there's no use in making something that is supposed to reach people with love and peace and an environment of strife. I don't, and generally I just don't like stress. So if I'm casting, for example, I'm asking, this person is good. Does she have drama? Does he have drama? I want to run away. If they do, do you understand? If they do, how does this person speak? The person might not be the strongest believer, but I try as much as possible to make sure that I work more
With
often than not with believers. But not just believers who are capable. So I'm not just going to choose you because you are a Christian, but I'm going to choose a Christian first. The Bible says to do good to all men, especially those in the household of faith. So I'm going to look for a believer first, a believer who is capable. And I really strive for a peaceful environment where, for example, for the last season of my series, Joy Never After, it was such a beautiful set. Like, we are done shooting the film. We didn't want to leave because everybody was just so chill. Do you see the way you see SLK and Belarus? They're really so cool in real life. Like no drama, no stress. The major director I work with, Michael, the cast and crew from top to the bottom, everybody just having that mutual love and respect for one another that makes you want to go to work every day.
Yeah.
And I think that you don't really have to be so I think that you can be firm,
Yeah.
have the results you want, and still be kind and nice to people.
Nice.
And then so from when I'm hiring, I'm looking for people who are capable, so that I also am not tempted to be the one to cause drama.
Yes.
So if you can't do the work, just go and learn and come back.
So, in essence, your spirituality is not enough. You gotta have skill. You have to be able to represent the excellence that you, as a director, is trying to portray, so that you can capture the hearts of people that God has sent you to capture. Amazing.
And I think a willingness to work.
Mm.
I think a willingness to really
That's key.
to take the initiative
That's key.
to get things done. I think that really matters.
Because
to
you can
me.
be skilled and not willing.
Yeah,
That's very key.
I'm not willing. So
That's true.
a heart for the story. Because I've not really had an opportunity to make such a high budget film where I can pay everybody what they are worth, quote unquote. So I can just splash the millions,
Exactly.
scatter your hazard. I've not really. So many times, of course, we try to treat people as best as we possibly can. So, but many times we've been privileged to have people who just really have a heart for the work. Who say, "Oh, I'm not doing."
There's still good people out there.
They are actually.
And I needed to say that because some people have had experiences, and I mean, trying to do something new, you need people, and they've had experiences of, I called somebody before and they messed it up. So there's still good people out there. Thank you for highlighting that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to ask 2 more questions,
Okay.
so that we can release you. The first question, you spoke about your dad, and you say he's now working with you, and he reminded me of our session in 2020 with Evangelist Mike Bamloye, and he was talking about generational creating. And he said that he believes that there is not one assignment that God gives you that's just for you. It's a generational assignment. I was going to ask your thought on that. That's the first question. My second question is, when you spoke about doing ministry, doing business. And it's important that we have that conversation, because I believe, and my mentor usually hits it, everything God has called you to do can sustain you. We don't know the system, we don't know the structure. And that's why sometimes it feels like we're struggling. So I want you to just, on that particular question, help somebody today to identify what exactly they should look out for that they can monetize. So that, because I've had somebody reach out to me and say to me, why would you be selling a course on hearing God? So are you telling me that if I have somebody who wants to hear God, they should come and pay? It's hearing God is free. And I decided not to respond, because I think that even when you think that somebody is doing something wrong, your first response is to go to God and ask, did you send that person? That's the truth. If, for example, they tell me today that Pastor Laju is getting married, for example, she's married already, please. And they come and tell me,
I'm married forever.
and they say, oh, Pastor Laju is there, she's getting married to Brother Mike. And I feel,
use
okay,
another
let me
name.
use another name,
Because
please.
we have a pastor that is Brother Mike.
Okay, let's say they say somebody is getting married to a Brother Mike, and you feel that they should not be together. I don't think that your first response should be, they should not be together. Your first response should be, Lord, what's your mind for these people, for this person? Because you can't just show up and you were not there. If the person comes and says, it's God that said, that's my husband, you were not there.
I think on this note, there are a number of things to consider. First of all, what's your relationship with this person?
Right.
If I'm pastoring someone and I hear that you are getting married and I know the person and the person does not have sense, I'm going to call you. I will call you before I call
because
God,
you have
because
relationship.
I have relationship. I have a level of spiritual authority.
Yeah.
But I think that just talking to random strangers who you know nothing about and trying to command them on what to do, I think that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. So the question is, how do I identify what I should monetize so that I don't get to the space where I think, because I mean, people cannot get in the space of judgment and say, no, am I selling the gospel? You know, how do I just do that?
This is an interesting question. I like it. First of all, the gospel is free. I don't think that we would tell anybody, I know the way to eternal life, and that's to receive the life of Christ. If anybody wants to believe in Jesus, if anybody wants eternal life, they have to believe in Jesus.
Yes.
John 3:16, and say, oh, but before I lead you to Jesus, you need to pay. That would be interestingly tricky. If I ran a church and I said, oh, before you come to church Sunday morning, you have to pay a gate fee. That will be tricky. And so if somebody really wants to learn how to hear from God, there are free messages online.
That was exactly what I said.
There are Sunday services where they can do that. But if I decide that I want to run a Bible school, Bible schools abroad are expensive.
It's a lot of money. Yes.
Because you have to understand that there are things that people do, and many of the times that's how they sustain their families. The laborer is worthy of their wages.
Yes.
So there are some things that are obviously free. I have friends who are pastors but are also marriage counselors. I couldn't really find a way to draw the line between doing marriage counseling as a business and marriage counseling as a pastor. I personally couldn't. And so from my personal experience, I decided that I would only do marriage counseling for my church members, but I won't charge.
Okay.
But if you are, my branch alone, they're like 1K people by God's grace. And we have several branches, right? So if anybody that messages me wants to have a meeting, I'm like, oh, I can refer you to somebody who's a professional marriage counselor. You can pay for a session.
Yeah.
But I only counsel church members. And
Yes.
sometimes I might even refer church members to another church approved counselor and say, okay, go to this person. So I think that boundaries are extremely important. Because if you don't have boundaries, what I do as a business is coaching.
Okay.
So I coach writers. God asked you to write a book. That's beautiful. I was not there when he asked you. If I'm going to coach you to write your book, you have to pay for my services,
Yes.
right? So just drawing that line, understanding personally what God will have you do. So I know people who are marriage counselors as a business and also pastors. Me, I couldn't figure out how to draw that line. And so I decided, okay, this is what I am going to do. This is where I'm going to draw the line.
That
so I think
settles your own conviction.
So I think sometimes you need to sit down with the Lord. You need to sit down with yourself. And sometimes you need to sit down with a coach.
Right.
You need to sit down with a coach. Someone like Tolu Michaels, for example, is a pastor's wife of mine.
That's my sister.
Okay, but she's a pastor's wife. Okay, that's beautiful. She's an amazing person. She's a pastor's wife of mine,
Yeah.
but she's also a coach when it
Yes.
comes to personal branding.
Yes.
And so she was the kind of person that really helped me figure out, okay, where do I draw the line? Because I felt like if I'm offering a service, I want everybody to be able to afford it. And she said, no, everybody can't afford it. Not everybody's your customer.
Yes.
There are some things you can do for everybody, and there are some things. So I think that just having that conversation with a coach, so it will also take you out of your comfort zone. If you have trouble charging for your business, pay a coach.
And they will help you out. Yes.
Yeah,
they'll structure it for
when you pay a coach, it does something to your head.
Yes.
Because now you've spent money on a coach. So that means that it will not be out of place for people to spend money on you.
Yes.
But when you haven't paid for anything, because you're in ministry, you always expect people to do things for free for you. That's something like I learned from Papa Hagin. If you're doing it, if you're getting a service, pay for it. Except somebody insists, right?
That they're not.
So I think that many times it does something to your own mind when
Yes,
you
it does.
pay for a coach, when you pay for courses. When you pay for courses and you say, I spent 1 million on learning how to do this business. I
need to be able to
make that
yes,
money
yes,
back.
Yes.
So being able to really draw that line, there are once or twice where the Lord will instruct you to do something for free for someone.
Absolutely.
But generally, you can have a culture where, like Tolu Michaels would say, where passion and profit sit in the same sentence.
Yes.
And I think it's very, very important to try and figure that out. I stopped coaching for a while, almost 2 years, because it was frustrating me. I wasn't making enough money, and I was putting in so much work, and it was affecting every other area of my life. I said, I'm going to take a break until I figure out how to make this work. And I think that's what I did. Now I've stopped coaching for a little while because I want to move all my prices up to premium. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I realign myself and get this done? Right. But you need to be able to understand that the work you do is worth it. And then sometimes maybe the work you do isn't worth it. So you need to go back and invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're not just asking people to pay you, but that there is a level of quality that you've invested in that you're asking people to pay you for.
Amazing. I even think that if you do free stuff, but it's not excellent, I don't think that it qualifies you to charge for anything. Because that is free does not mean it's cheap. And that you price it does not mean it is valuable. So in the case of, I need to separate what I'm doing, we need to be sure that this thing that you're doing actually delivers on value. Thank you so much, Pastor Laju. Final question.
Yeah, no problem.
The generational question.
Okay.
What's your take? I love that your dad works side by side. I love it. What's your take on what God calls us to do? And seeing that it transcends just our generation, even if they're not your birth children, transcends our generation, and you just try kind of like open doors for other children or other people to come in so that work can carry on.
I think that's beautiful. I think that first of all, it's a mindset thing. We must start with that. So when I'm building a business, or I'm making a film, or I'm telling a story. It's not. I also want it to be something that stands the test of time. Sometimes I sing some very old songs. He's turned my morning.
Yeah.
There are some songs when there was a particular song I was playing. It had come out 35 years ago. My husband said, "This song is still so timeless."
Wow.
I think it was from this same album I just sang from.
Wow.
Right? So the quality of work we do, I think it's important. There are some secular songs. It's not as if I don't sing secular songs. I sing some of them, especially because I spend time at the gym, so they're always playing
Yes,
them. And
of
then,
course, and you get into your system.
and then when I'm preaching, I tell my members that it's from research I got it. But there's some that reigned last year, and you don't hear them again at all. I'm like, where did this song vanish to? But there are some songs in the kingdom that are so timeless. And it's not just because of the anointing on it, it's also because of the level of excellence. So when you have the anointing and excellence, it's a beautiful combination. And I think that that's a good place to start. Like, I want what I do to outlast me. So how do I do my best now with the resources I have available? How do I push myself so that from generation to generation, right?
It's still relevant.
When you look at the writings of the Bible, granted it's an inspired book by the Holy Ghost, but sometimes you're looking at the choice of words. You're looking at the way Luke.
Yes.
You're looking at Paul, so strong in his letters, and it's something that has transcended from generation to generation. I think that's a good thing. I also think that the idea of building relationships. My father inspired my love for writing. And so even though he doesn't work with me on films now, if we're editing or we're working on a book, because I still ghostwrite once in a while for select clients, he works with me. And so just being the kind of father who was even present, I'm incredibly busy, but once in a while my daughter is playing the keyboard, I want to listen. She wrote her first song.
Yeah, I
said,
saw
okay,
the post.
let me record you. I wouldn't say that I'm with her 247 every minute of the day, but I try to be as intentional as possible so that when she's having memories of her childhood, I'm not the kind of parents that really cares if my daughter comes first in class. Like, oh, you must come first. Because I want a well-adjusted child. Yeah. And maybe I came first once or twice. Okay, I came first a lot in the university, like top of my class, first, second, third. But I just want a well-adjusted child. You do well academically, that's beautiful. But there are other aspects of your life that will really matter. Yeah. You are kind to people. You have good social skills. You don't have any trauma you are trying to recover from. I'll never forget, I have an adopted daughter who's 15. I went to her school on open day. And there was a man who had 2 sons. And I'm not judging him, but it was such a strange experience. The first one was failing. Wasn't doing well. And he was insulting him. The teacher was even trying to say, but he tried this time. He said, no, he's always playing. Insulting the boy in public. The other one came first. And the man said, you think you are smart, but you're not smart. It's overconfidence that will kill you.
Wow.
And so it's important that as a parent, you're also speaking life into your children's lives. Yeah. And just getting them in a situation where they're comfortable with you. And it's not easy being a parent.
No, it's not.
It's not easy being the perfect example of a loving family or loving couple to your children. But I think that it's worth the effort because they will remember.
Yes.
They will remember and it will stay with them for the rest of their lives. And I think that's a good place to start. Wow. And then I know that you didn't ask me a question in this regard, but I think that for anybody who wants to go into uncharted territories, I think it's important that you are brave. I think it's important that you're brave. There's nothing you can do either in the kingdom or out of it without bravery. So I read somewhere that you can't start a line if you're unwilling to stand alone. So there has to be something different about you. For Loving Amanda, what we did to release it the first time was unprecedented. We did what I call the virtual premiere. Yes. Because I didn't want a situation where I had a platform that people had to consistently subscribe to, and I had to support it even when I didn't have all the content that they would continually watch. And I said, okay, well, but I also don't want a situation where people will pirate my film. I don't really have resources to get a space where I can gather the number of people that can buy tickets to watch. What can we do? And so we had a virtual premiere, and it actually really worked out because there were some films that came out in the cinemas around the same time that we made more. I looked at the numbers, we made more than them, and all our money was coming to us. Yes. And if we really are going to take any industry or any mountain, we have to sort out the economics of it. We can't give all our films for free and then expect to be competing with people who have billion-dollar budgets. Right. There was a cartoon I took my kids to watch. Among what cartoon was this? Minions. Okay. They enjoyed it, but after the cartoon, I told them, I said, please don't practice anything you saw in that cartoon. Wow. Like, I promised I would take them to the cinemas, and we went, and me and their dad were just like, what is this? There were some subtle things that I'm hoping, my children are smart, but I'm hoping I hope you're not smart enough to catch that. Because among the bad people, there was a reverend mother, right? Who, when they are flying, she will ascend. Oh
my God.
And her weapon was a cross.
Oh my God.
So you can see that these people, and they spent millions of dollars.
Yes.
They are intentional about the kind of content that they are creating. So we can't just say, oh, if you like, give it to us. If you don't like, don't give it to us. When a Christian film is coming out, show up and put your money there.
Right.
When, if you have a brand and you can support Christian content, do it. I'm very passionate because the truth is that eventually these people are shaping the hearts and minds of our kids.
Yes.
Right? And it's one thing to say, I don't want my kids to watch that. Okay, what will they watch? So we need to not just be against stuff that is bad. When Gay Superman came out, everybody was shouting, oh my God, they were sending me DM. That's what people say. Jerry Never After had a new episode that did so well that week because everybody was like, oh my God, we need Christian content. So we're always particular about what we're against. But we're not always as spoken as Christians about what we are for. About putting your money where your faith is, putting your resources where your faith is, putting your audience where your faith is. And I think that it's important that we push ourselves. Push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Wow.
Don't just do it
anyhow.
Let your convictions be backed by excellent execution.
Wow.
Let your godly convictions be backed by excellent execution. Step out of your comfort zone. If it means improving yourself, improve yourself. If it means spending more time in prayer, someone asked, where do you get stories from? I said, is it from your mind? I said, no, it's from my spirit.
Yes.
And then, but it all requires many times a lot of exertion to translate it from your spirit through your
Into
mind
a relatable
experience. So sometimes it's really going to stress you.
That's what we call the tension that holds everything together.
And it's so worth it. So I called you by 6 a.m. this morning because I was writing through the night.
Wow.
Do you understand? And one of my daughters came to meet me. So there was part of being a mom.
Yes.
And then Pastor Nami led prayers this morning. So I was like, okay, let me join in to pray. But the truth is that you need to put in the work. We have grace. But our grace the grace given to us has been given to us for more abundant labor.
Yes.
Paul said, I labored more abundantly. So we have more grace. Not saving grace now, grace for work.
Yes, grace for work.
From saving grace that makes us save. But grace has been given to us for more abundant labor. And it's of no use having grace for work if we're not ready to labor more abundantly.
Wow.
With these few words of mouth.
Wow, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing and pouring your heart out. I believe that somebody has learned something today. I believe that you have begun to see that it's beyond, oh, I am called, oh, this is what I think God says I should do. There's need to do the work. And if there's anything, it's time to rise to responsibility. This era of being a creator, this era of being an innovator or an inventor expects or requires from us to actually rise to the work that is available for us. And I pray in the name of Jesus that everything God has put on your heart to do, you will not just have your journals filled with it, but that you step out in faith, in courage, in bravery, and in excellence of spirit to do everything in its fullness in Jesus' name. Thank you for joining us on this session. I will see you in the next session. Remember that if you got the regular ticket, you have to upgrade your ticket to VIP if you want to have all-time access to all of these sessions. And if you want to come in our studio and have us help you design your system for building a community in your ministry,